to India and Ireland, round Africa and back again. We don't really need to know just where we'll go. Maybe Canada, then to Brazil, then through the Alpine foothills. All I really want to know is, can we go? Oh baby, can we go? Round and around the globe.
Welcome to Take Me With You, episode 54. I'm Ryan.
And I'm Cheryl. We are two well-traveled people who want to go everywhere.
But that's not going to happen. So instead, we'll travel vicariously by inviting a guest to share their unique travel stories with us.
Today, we're talking to Diana. Diana is from our state of Washington, but is currently studying abroad in the UK. Welcome, Diana.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yay! And what time is it there right now?
It's now 3:43 in the a.m.
Oh, well, it's
In
not
the
quite as
morning.
early as when we started talking.
It's early.
This is a dedicated podcast person right now.
I have a lot of passion.
You're a college student, so is this waking up for you or before going to bed for you? Because I feel like
Oh boy,
it could
I
be
couldn't tell
either.
ya.
Yeah.
It could be either. Depends on the day.
Oh man. So, this is now you're entering your second year of being abroad, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So, can you tell us about like what prompted you to want to study abroad? Had you traveled much before that? Like, what's your
Oh
deal?
my gosh. Yeah. I had traveled a little bit, but not that much. I mean, I went on like a Europe trip during high school that was sponsored through my school, and then I went on 2 month-long study abroads during my time in undergraduate studies. One to Costa Rica and one to Greece, and those were both school trips, so you know you're taking classes and professors are teaching you and you're traveling, and it's a lot of fun, but it's not the same sort of travel experience. You know, both sorts are good in different ways, but it was just a little different, whereas this has been like me moving somewhere and sort of being in one place for a long period of time and sometimes I do little side trips if I can, and I'm trying to take advantage of the time I'm here because I honestly probably will move back to the US after this year. So I'm trying to like take advantage of my time in Europe because you're so close to so many countries when you're here, and it's really amazing. But I also have no monies, so that's hard. But yeah, I had traveled a little bit, but not a ton. And this has been a really cool way for me to sort of get immersed in another culture, while still being like not that far from Washington. Especially, I feel like the culture here is kind of similar to Washington culture. But I first came here because of studies. So I did a master's at St. Andrews, which is I'm currently in Edinburgh, and St. Andrews is a little northeast of here, on the east coast of Scotland. And that's why I originally came, was to do that master's, and I'm now starting a second year in Edinburgh, I mean, in the US it would really just be 1 master's, but here it's 2 masters, so it's a lot. But I'm now starting another
What are
year.
you studying?
I study psychology, and I'm doing
Okay.
research with kids right now, so lots
Oh,
of
with
fun.
kids?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, of course, I'm sort of nerdy like that. Like, what is the research that you're doing?
Well, I'm just starting out, so I'm trying to formulate a specific research focus right now, but I'm really interested on sort of trust and authority, and how those play a role in shaping kids' perception of outgroups and what that looks like in terms of their learning about morality and about other people and their role in the world. So
Interesting.
Yeah.
So how does that, I would guess some of that would vary from country to country and culture to culture.
definitely, yeah. I think there is sort of, actually, a lot of the research has suggested that there is some baseline of care and compassion, and also in-group bias, that even infants as young as 3 months old start to show signs of. So there,
Really?
it's, I mean, human beings are so complex, and there's always this mixture of like, there is this sort of altruistic side of us, but then you meet kids and they're so selfish, and you're like, what did anyone ever do to you? So I think it's always a mix of both, and I think from culture to culture sort of customs vary, but a lot of times the kids sort of are pretty similar, actually, across the board. So
Interesting.
But they have cuter accents over there, though.
oh my gosh, so cute. Oh, part of me wishes I could stay here just to like meet someone and have kids and just have little British babies, because they're so adorable. It doesn't matter if they're being the worst, they're just so cute because of the accent.
Oh my
boy.
goodness.
So there's a couple of questions that we like to ask all of our guests. So this might play out a little bit differently for you, since I know you're living abroad. But when you think about even living abroad and just going and visiting other countries and things, why do you travel?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, and part of what I hinted at even before, and just my worldview, is that I think the more I've traveled, the more I've realized that though people have different ways of expressing what it is to be a person and what it is to like dance and sing and eat and play, people really aren't all that different at the end of the day. And that's something that I personally love traveling, is seeing all of the diversity and even like the biodiversity. But then sometimes you go somewhere. I've had this experience a lot where I'm traveling through a place and I'm like, oh, that looks like the mountain where I grew up, or the, you know, this just it just looks like where I'm from, and I feel like I'm at home, but I'm halfway around the world. And that's one of my favorite experiences. And one of the reasons that I travel, I think, is just to remind myself that sometimes the world feels like a big and scary place, and sometimes it is, and you get in situations traveling, I'm sure both of you guys have been in situations where you're like, oh crap, what have I gotten myself into? Like, I don't speak this language, I don't know what this says, where am I going, what am I doing? But then I don't know, one of my the things that I really enjoy, I think, are the moments when you go through some of that stress and anxiety, but then you realize, oh well, this makes sense to me. You know, I'm a person. They're people. And this is cool. So, yeah.
I like that. That's very cool.
So the next question is, what type of traveler are you?
Oh gosh. I think as a rule, I'm more of a homebody, which might be kind of surprising to people, as I'm someone who's living abroad as an American, but I think overall I really like to travel slow. Like, my favorite trips have been trips where there's just time to like enjoy, and I know that that's not always realistic or possible for a lot of people because of work and not having a lot of time off. But I also just enjoy the trips the most when, like, I don't know, I went to Italy earlier this year, and it was like, oh, I'm gonna try this like spritzer, and it was completely disgusting and I hated it, but it was like, oh, this is an afternoon thing that people in Italy do. It was like those orange, I don't know if you guys have ever had them, it was like alcoholic and orange and just so bitter and disgusting. But I enjoyed it. Maybe, yeah, I think that
It's like an aperitif.
yes,
An Italian thing. Yeah, it's kind of weird. Yeah.
Oh, I hated it.
Yeah.
But I also love the experience of hating it, you know. So I think I'm definitely the sort of traveler that I like to plan some things, and I think if you're in a place, of course, you need to take advantage and see all of the things that you can, especially the things that are important to you personally to see or that you're really interested in. But I think there's also a level at which it's, if you're in a place where the time structure is different and more relaxed, why not enjoy that sort of flow of, oh, this is what they do here. They like to have an aperitif, and even if I don't like it, it's fun to have the experience of doing that.
So how do you, when you plan your trips, how do you plan them or structure them or schedule them so that they are slow enough for you to enjoy? Because I'm asking because both Cheryl and I tend to jam pack our schedules, even though we know we need to go slower than that.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm wondering if maybe you have some tips or suggestions on how you go about doing that when you plan.
Oh, I wish I did, and the reality is that I know that it's a little unrealistic to do that. I think partly I'm at a time in my life where because I don't have a lot of financial freedom to travel, so if like my parents have been to visit a few times, or like other relatives, and I have those types of trips where there's a lot more freedom to slow down, where it's like, I have some financial backing, and then I have the trips with my friends or with other people who are closer to my age. And like the trip to Ireland I just took a few weeks ago we're staying in hostels, we're taking public transportation, far less glamorous, but then we also made sure to we had a full day on the west coast of Ireland just to walk for a day. And that is just so good for you. And I think especially when you're traveling, you're just jet lagged and you're tired and your body is tired and your mind is tired. And then you're also just overwhelmed with all this stimuli that's unfamiliar to you.
Yeah.
And I think I would say it's almost more important on the beginning of the trip to, you don't want to get yourself in a rhythm where you're just being lazy. And I don't think either of you would ever do that. Because I know that Cheryl is a planner, and I couldn't imagine her just going somewhere and not taking advantage of everything that's there. But I think just giving yourself a break and saying, look, this is why everything is so crazy and overwhelming. It's because of there's so many differences, and I'm really tired and overloaded. And I think it just varies trip by trip. If you're with someone who can support you, obviously you'll have more freedom to be able to relax, whereas if you're by yourself, I've traveled by myself, and those can be really, really fun and freeing trips, but also some of them more stressful because you're just I need to make sure I'm being really careful, and I need to know where I'm going and look confident. And so
absolutely,
unfortunately I don't really have a way to make that a full reality. I think maybe just wait until you're old. Just live for a little while. That's my tip.
Okay, so how old is old then?
Wait until you're old.
Travel like an old person. Old is, I think partly it's learning how to be wise and to prioritize rest,
You're talking about mature, not old, actually.
One thing that I've seen, even just meeting people from Europe and experiencing more of all of the cultures over here, being at universities, I'm really exposed to a very international experience, and I've had some close friends who are from Europe. And their families will take a month out of each year devoted to just traveling, but it's so different than what the travel sort of model I had ever been exposed to, where it's we're gonna go to one place and we're just going to enjoy that place, and we're going to have structure, but also we're gonna have freedom. And I know that is just not a reality for a lot of people. Because you aren't as close, and flights from the US to Europe or to other places are maybe more expensive, and you're more isolated being in the US than being here in some ways, just by the oceans. But that was a really
all those oceans.
Yeah, I know, they're just what a drag. That was a really cool thing for me just to see modeled, was, oh, like this can be done even with adults who have really busy lives and jobs. And anyway,
that's very cool. Interesting. That was going to be one of the things I was going to ask you, is like, how have you seen people from different countries travel? So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, I've seen, I mean, I think even, so for people in sort of my age bracket and people who are finishing up college and then going on and trying to figure out what they're going to do with their lives, and even people younger than that, in a lot of countries, I know like a lot of Australians or people from sort of the European countries will just take a year after their studies just devoted to traveling before they do any sort of higher education. And that's very, very common. It's really common to meet young people all over who are just sort of, I'm doing this for a year, or I'm doing the the like WOOF volunteering, where you go to a place and you get room and board working for some company or person. And you just...
Wait, what's this program?
It's called WOOF. It's an acronym, and I don't remember what it stands for.
WOOF, like WOOF? Like a dog?
I think so. I think that's how it's spelled. It's like a sort of a organization, or like a group share thing where someone...
Worldwide Opportunities on Organic Farms?
Yes, yeah. Maybe it's more... I didn't know it was farming specific, but...
well, I don't know. It's WWOOF.
Yeah.
Is that what you're thinking? Okay.
Anyway, so I don't know a ton about it, to be honest, but I met someone who did it, and it's just this mentality that, why would I just rush into the next phase of life, you know? And specifically, I've noticed it with younger people, but I think older people too will. I'm gonna, like, I met this woman from New Zealand at a bed and breakfast a month ago or two, who was just, she was a teacher, and it was her summer, and she was just like, yeah, I'm just in Scotland for 3 months, like, just chilling and traveling around, which was really cool. I mean, she was middle-aged. And
so what's your number one travel tip?
Again, I've already alluded a little bit to this, and I know it's controversial, and maybe I can't justify it all the way, but I think what I want to say is that my dream is to travel like an old person, with the caveat of ditching the buses and like a lot of the more like, you know, not as culturally, like, you know, getting into the culture sort of activities. Like, I never want to sort of just go to a place and be on the outside of the culture and not sort of involve myself. However, I think there are so many benefits to traveling in such a way where you can really absorb a lot of the history and walk and enjoy the food, and not... I've had some trips where it feels like I'm just sort of going from place to place, and then, like, when I get hungry, I'll eat a quick meal right before I have another thing. And there's still enjoyable things about that, but I think I've enjoyed the trips the most where it's like I'm learning the history and I'm really absorbing it because I have the time to reflect on it, and I don't feel like I need to be doing something every moment of the day. And a lot of trips I'll go to all these museums and I'll see all these cool things, and I won't remember any of the history or any of the like importance of the monument afterwards. It'll just be like, oh yeah, I have a vague idea of what that felt like in the moment to be there, but I really have no idea any of the actual like significance of that landmark or that museum or anything, or that piece of art. So yeah, and also I know you've talked a little bit about free walking tours in your other episodes, and I am a huge advocate of that. Even living in Edinburgh, I've done free walking tours here. Well, I did a Harry Potter tour because Edinburgh is the birthplace of Harry Potter.
Harry Potter.
You just need to stop right now and you need to tell us about the Harry Potter tour.
Oh my god,
Yes.
it was amazing.
Harry
Would
Potter.
recommend. So they do, in Edinburgh, they do like multiple times a day free Harry Potter walking tours. And they are amazing. You get a wand. You get to hold a wand and like cast spells at the traffic lights to make them turn and cast spells at different things. It's so
Oh my
fun.
goodness.
Yeah, and they sort you into houses. It was a blast. And I learned so
my
much
gosh.
about just like, I didn't know a lot of stuff about J.K. Rowling and about her life. And now I know all this. And I mean, living in the city where she lived in, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's the hotel where she wrote the 7th Harry Potter. And oh yeah, this is the graveyard where she got the name Tom Riddle from, and where she like,
Oh, really?
That's
and her
so
kids go to that
cool.
school. And wow. Yeah.
Oh.
Definitely. So if you come to Edinburgh,
Wow.
that is a definite. Please do the free Harry Potter walking tour.
Oh my goodness! I did
Nice.
not know that existed.
Yes.
I have not yet been to
So
Scotland. It is
cool.
on my list, but now that is on my Scotland list.
Yes, definitely.
Wow.
Oh my
They
gosh!
meet at
That's
Greyfriars Bobby,
yeah.
the little dog statue, at noon every day. So I'm pretty sure.
That's awesome. Oh my
Wow.
goodness. And you get a wand. So
get a
what house were you sorted into, and were you surprised, or did you feel like you kind of knew?
Oh, I'm
Are you a
Hufflepuff
Ravenclaw?
through and through, and part of me like
Really?
resents that because everyone makes fun of Hufflepuffs, and they're like, "Nah, you're just the dumb ones." But you know, it's fine. I'm confident. I like being a Hufflepuff. It's fine. So, yeah. Well,
I
you
love
sound surprised.
Are you
Cheryl.
trying to convince us or yourself?
That hurts a little bit. I don't want to go too deep into this. We don't need to analyze it.
Okay, well, as a fellow Hufflepuff, I am also very
Aw.
happy. Yeah, it was so funny because I was like, well, I mean, Hufflepuffs, I just feel like are the best ones because they're just the most like well-rounded people. I
Yeah,
think.
it's like,
And
well, I don't
so-
need to be ubiquitously like one thing, you know, I can be everything.
Yeah. Well, and it's kind of a bummer because one of the four, like straight up in the first book, they're just like, oh, and Slytherins are evil. In case
Yeah,
you didn't know.
exactly.
And
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
not just like Harry's friends saying that. That's straight up like the
Yeah.
Sorting Hat is like, or if you're cunning.
I've
And it's
never
like,
understood why
what?
people want to be a Slytherin. It's so puzzling. It's like, oh
Yeah.
it's nice.
Slytherins.
Oh,
wanna be
are you a
Slytherins,
Slytherin?
Oh
so-
my goodness.
No.
Okay.
Brian, you're
No.
a Ravenclaw, right? Are
I'm
you a
pretty sure I'm
Ravenclaw?
Ravenclaw.
Oh.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure.
probably.
Just the kind of the intellectual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't think I'm not gutsy enough to be a Gryffindor, and I don't think I would want to be a Gryffindor. They cause too much trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had some people think I was a Gryffindor, and I was like, yeah, but they're brave. And they're like, Shirley, you're brave. And I was like, but I also don't want to hang out with, like, people that, like, are proud of how brave and gutsy they are. Like that, you know, so it's also like, who do you want to hang out with, you know,
Yeah.
is part of, I think, what house you're going to be
Yeah.
in. And it's like, I just want
It's
to hang
true.
out with the nice people.
I'm good hanging out with the helpers. People who will feed
Yeah.
each other and yeah. Yeah, it was sad on the
so
tour I went on, all the kids wanted to be Gryffindors, and I was like, oh, you guys, like, all these other houses
even
have so much to
know.
offer.
That's so funny. So what other like touristy things have you done there? Like if someone was going to go and be a tourist, what would you recommend?
Yeah, I've done a lot of the touristy things. So there's always like the castle and the Royal Mile in Edinburgh are some of the biggest things that you should see. The castle, I would say, if you are coming to Scotland and you're traveling around and going lots of places, it's the sort of thing where if you were going to go see other castles, and I have some other castle recommends that I think are sort of a better overall experience, but if you're just going to Edinburgh and London, say, on a UK trip, you should go see the castle there because it's pretty cool. And I've done the whiskey tour just because living in Scotland, it's kind of obligatory.
Sweet.
And yes, and a lot of things that I still haven't done. But there is the Kelpies are a pretty popular attraction. It's outside of Edinburgh. Huge horse head statues, which I learned about the significance of, and I don't remember anymore. But there are also lots of walking trails around there. And I mean, Edinburgh is the home to a lot of really famous history, like the Scottish Enlightenment, and there are lots of statues of old dead white guys around town. So if you're a fan of like David Hume or Adam Smith or like Thomas Reid or the Scottish Enlightenment, like for me as a sort of a philosophy and psychology nerd, I'm like, oh, this is so cool, like David Hume's toe, which I
wait, his toe.
So there are a few statues where you rub them for good luck, and one of them is David Hume's toe.
Uh-huh.
You rub his toe for good luck, which I haven't personally done because I'm like, that's touristy, I'm not doing that. But there's a part of me that's like, I kind of want to do that eventually at some point. Like,
wait, hold on. That's touristy. I'm not going to do that, says the person who talked about the Harry Potter tour.
Yeah, well,
where you get a magic wand. How is that not touristy?
That's about being a Harry Potter nerd.
Yeah.
Not necessarily about being a tourist.
It's about
Don't
a
get me
tourism
wrong.
of magic.
I'm totally going on that tour. But
And yeah, like another thing that people do is they rub, I don't know if you guys have heard of Greyfriars Bobby. It was this dog that, so Greyfriars Kirkyard is this famous, really old church in Edinburgh. And one of the people who worked at the church a couple hundred years ago, I'm probably getting this all wrong, so sorry if you're like a history buff, but this person died. He had this really cute terrier dog, and the dog went and laid by the grave for something like years and years. Like every day he would go and sit by his master's grave and like take sticks and stuff. So there's a little statue of the dog, and people rub the dogs, like pet him, and his nose is all like rubbed off, and it's just gold now. So there's that. That's really, and people have like a little monument to Greyfriars Bobby because they're like, oh, it's such a good story. Yeah. But I think Edinburgh is also really, some of the most interesting parts of its history are like the medieval history, and like learning about that really makes me grateful to live in the modern age, because apparently Edinburgh used to be called Old Reekie. Like if you hear, yeah, because the castle's on a hill, and they used to just dump their sewage essentially like into the surrounding moat, and so it stank. Yeah, fun stuff. I mean, it's the same as like when I was in Venice earlier this year, learning that they still throw some percentage of their sewage, or not throw, but it goes into the canals, and so if you fall in the canals, you're supposed to seek immediate medical attention. Stuff like that. Sorry, I forgot the original question.
Oh, it's all good. This has all been interesting. Yeah, I guess, is there anything else that, like, if somebody visits, you feel like they should go check out or do, or food they should eat? Anything.
Oh, well, I mean, haggis. If you guys, do you know what haggis is? Is
it stomach lining?
Yeah. So it's
okay.
It's sort of like sausage. It's sheep stomach, and everyone is like, ugh, haggis, and it is a little like, it's like eating sausage that's like a little, it's like between the grossness of a very well prepared sausage that's high quality and like a hot dog. Like I would say it's somewhere on that scale. But if it's well prepared, it's tasty. And there's also vegetarian haggis for people who don't want to eat meat. And there's like neeps and tatties, which is mashed potatoes and radishes, I believe. And I mean, there's a lot of like carbohydrates and protein in the Scottish staple diet, and alcohol. So.
Yep, those seem like the staples.
Yes.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome. So what has been your experience as a student there? Like, what's similar to being a student in the U.S. and what's different?
Yeah. I think it's different just in terms of, I mean, I think of like reading the Harry Potter books growing up, and back to Harry Potter because that's like my favorite subject. And and learning about how they did their classes and how it almost like seemed more formal and more like, I don't know, strict than sort of the public school education that I received. And I think what I've learned is that in the UK, at least in my experience in higher education here, it's a lot more self-directed, and that may not be the case for other degrees, but at least for my degrees, it's been like, here's all this work that you could be doing if you choose to, and here are some like recommended readings, but really it's just up to you. And you're like, for some of my classes, 100% of my grade was one paper, so it's a lot of weight placed on.
No pressure there.
Yeah. So it's kind of intense in that regard, where it's like, oh, I have no buffer of any other grades. Like in the US, I went to college in Washington, and I would have so many assignments throughout the semester. And so when it came to the end of the semester, when I was taking a final or even a midterm or something, it was like, okay, well, if I completely fail this, I'll still probably get a B in the class. Whereas here, it's more, you're presenting this piece of work and it needs to be really polished and well presented. Otherwise, you probably will fail the class. So in some ways it is more rigorous, but then it's almost like you're not doing so much small assignments and work all the time. So you do have the time to invest in, like, okay, I'm really going to just read for forever. And class dialogues were also a big thing. So a lot of like they call it lectures is sort of the standard, like would be like a US lecture where the professor is just talking at you. And then tutorials are more when the class is invited to discuss, and you're also graded on that. So you're graded on your knowledge as you discuss things, which for me, as like, I'm very much not a verbal processor. I'm way better at writing. And so it was very intimidating for me, but I think it also helped me really hone my sort of verbal persuasion and logic skills, if that makes sense. It made me better at formulating my ideas verbally. But yeah, it's definitely different in some ways, and their grading scale is whack. Like, it's crazy.
Speaking of your verbal skills here,
yeah, I'm just complimenting myself and then messing up. But at least at St. Andrews, we were graded on a 20-point measure. So the highest grade you can get is a 20, and no one gets a 20. Like, even the best students and the most accomplished students will maybe get an 18 or a 19. And then it's divided into different like subsections. So like a 16.5 to a 20 is called a distinction, and then a 13.5 to a 16.5 is a merit, and then a pass, and then a fail. And it kind of reminds me of, again, Harry Potter, of the OWLs and the like exceptional, exceeds expectations.
Yep.
And then there's like
that
troll
was
or
based
something.
off of UK systems.
Yeah, so it's kind of similar to that. But yeah, it's like, wow, there's not as much wiggle room for, in the US we have A, A minus, B plus, B minus, at least that's how it was for me. And so it was like, oh, okay, maybe I didn't get like an A plus, but at least I still got an A minus or a B plus or whatever. And here it's like, no, like, you've got to be really, they just don't hand out any, and I'm sure partly too it was like just the difference in the types of schools that I attended, but that's been my experience, at least. It's more rigorous in some ways, but then you're also given more time to work on things.
Were you a 4-point student?
I was.
Is that your jam?
Close, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I was not, more like in the 3.5 range to 3 point myself. And so I've heard from 4-point students that like they get a bit of a complex about like really needing that perfect grade and everything.
Yeah.
So I wonder if is there a different mindset around what it looks like to have a perfect grade if no one's really getting the best grade?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on who you are. I think you're going to find competitive students in any area of the world. But I definitely think there is more of a, at least in sort of the circles I was around, of, yeah, we're going to push ourselves and we're going to do the best that we can and work hard. But also, you don't really like advertise your scores in the same way as some people do. That I don't know, that's what comes to mind for me, is like, yeah, I would talk about it with my close friends, but no one else knew the marks I was getting, and that was okay. And I think based on sort of people's participation in class, it was pretty obvious the ones who were really investing a lot of time in doing the readings and those who weren't. And I was somewhere in the middle. I definitely was not one of the like the best student, you know, which was kind of a shock to me, because I was like, oh my god, like I was pretty average, which is okay. But yeah, so I mean, I think it depends on sort of your goals, and some people were like in it for the learning experience, others want to be professional academics, and so of course it's going to be competitive. But I think there is a sense of, yeah, like at least for me, I'm like, this being here has been the most difficult education I've gone through, and I've really, really tried my hardest, and I've done well, but like that, you know, I did the best I could, and I haven't done like exceptionally, you know, but it's almost like this sense of pride at, yeah, like I worked hard on this and I really tried. So yeah,
that's really interesting. Do they try to translate grades to like a US grading system at all, and is that a difficult process, and what's that all like?
Oh gosh, so I would say like the top class of grades is maybe comparable to like a 3.5 or above, and then below that is like a 3 to a 3.5, and then successively. But most people just like don't really even, the systems are kind of separate, and they don't really like take GPA, or they don't understand it as much, has been my experience.
But like, is there a situation where you've needed to be able to say like, these are the grades I'm getting and this is what it's the equivalent of for any kind of a like whatever degree, or is there any reason that you've needed to do that?
Yeah, I mean, so even like in applying to this program, you know, it was like, okay, I report my US grades in GPA, and then I report my UK grades in their scale. And I think because of the world of academics and people being connected, like they do understand what GPA means roughly. But it's not like, oh wow, it's so impressive that you got this GPA. You know, it's more just like there's a little disconnect. And so sometimes I've like had to explain to professors like, oh, like, well, I got this GPA and that's what this would mean in the UK.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
But as far as the degrees that you're earning, the grade is not attached to those at all, right? It's just, here's this degree, and once you have the degree, that degree travels with you to whatever country you go to?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's like if I got a master's in the US, like I would still have it if I came here. It's, yeah, so you're awarded a degree, and then you're awarded like a further, like, this is sort of how you did in the degree.
So, there is a score attached to the degree.
Yeah. So it's like with like I think they just award you the degree if it's like a pass. And then if it's like a pass, they call it like with merit or with distinction. At least from St. Andrews. I don't know. St. Andrews is kind of like a bit antiquated because it's an older university, and I think people here would call it like posh. Like it's kind of a posh university where like they're really stuck in their ways, and so maybe that is just a St. Andrews thing, and I don't know if that's different from other UK
Interesting.
schools, but
Now, when you say it's an older university, how old is older?
It's like 50 years old, Ryan.
yeah. So 19, no, I'm just kidding. It is the third oldest in the English-speaking world. So it was founded in 1413. Yeah, and I'm not currently
1413.
Yeah, I'm not currently attending St. Andrews. I'm at University of Edinburgh now, but I think Edinburgh was 1518. You can fact check me on that if you need to. But yeah, so we're talking like
That's so cool.
pretty old.
Oh, yeah. 1413.
Yeah.
It is on their homepage of
Yes,
their
they're
website.
very proud.
I mean, I'm sure they're very
clearly
proud
says
of that.
Scotland's first university.
Very proud.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. How many of your professors were ghosts?
Only 2. I was a little disappointed.
That's just like one of the first things I pictured with that.
Oh, gosh.
Oh my goodness. So are there a lot of international students there, or are
Yeah,
you kind
tons. Yeah.
of okay?
So in Scotland
Interesting.
too, the way it works is that for undergraduate degrees, Scottish students get free tuition if they get in somewhere, at least at St. Andrews. So like it was hyper competitive for Scottish students to get in.
Wow.
But then international students, because I pay a lot more money to go there, or like people from the EU, all of the sort of tuition charges are different based on where you're from. But so there were definitely Scottish students there, but I was expecting to come to school here and to be like, oh wow, like everyone is from Britain, this is great. And that's not the case. There are a lot of international students. I've met a lot of people from the US. I've met a lot of people who are Chinese and from all over Europe. I mean, Spanish, German, Austrian, just the people I've met. Like, but I mean, I also work at a little cafe down the street, and I worked with someone from like Slovakia, someone from Poland, people from Britain, someone from Spain, someone from France, someone from Italy. And so in general, I think Edinburgh and London probably are super international places as a whole.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's been one of my favorite things about living here is I had this expectation of like really meeting a lot of Scots, and I have met definitely some Scots who are dear friends, but then I've also just met the world, tons of people from all over.
Anything else you want to share about your experience there?
Oh gosh, it is not as cold here as I was expecting.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, well, so where I'm at in Scotland is roughly similar. Oh gosh, I always forget if it's latitude or longitude, but it's roughly similar to where
Latitude.
the latitude of like the southern Alaskan islands would be. So
Oh, really?
It's-
The Aleutian Islands.
yeah, it's far north. And so it does, something that I've noticed here is that being from Washington, we're used to it getting dark in the winter earlier, but it really gets dark here at like in December
Yeah.
and January. It really gets dark at 3:30, like dark. And in the summer, in July, there were 2 days where if you travel a little north in Scotland, it would be light for 48 hours. So that's definitely something where if you're like prone to seasonal affective disorder, like I am a little bit,
Yeah.
it can be kind of sad in the winter because it's so gray and so dark. But then also you have these summers where you're like on the beach at 11 p.m. and it feels like it's 6 p.m. and it's so fun.
That's
So
really cool.
I also had family members who came and visited me in March, and it was I think they had a really good time, but I would say specifically if you're going to come to Scotland, the best times of the year, although they're some of the more busy, would be, I think, September, like honestly, like around this time of the year. Like if you're wanting to miss the crowds in September, October, if you're unable to come during that time, like the summer, in order to get good weather, because if you come like early in the spring, it's just going to be rainy and cold and windy. And so if you're trying to do stuff, that can not be the best, unless you want that, unless you're like from Florida and you're like, oh yeah, give me all of the weather.
It's a good point. It depends on what people are looking for in their vacation time. Yeah. Well, Diana, thank you so much for sharing about your experience studying abroad.
Yeah, I feel like
So
we just
cool
talked
to
about
hear
Harry Potter
about.
for an hour.
Yeah. I mean, that's
Well,
that's fine. You know, we're good
I
with
mean,
that.
yeah, but that's okay.
Either way.
So we have a couple questions for you. The first one is based on the title of our podcast, Take Me With You. If you could take us with you to just one thing in Edinburgh, what would it be and why?
So I went to this really cool and somewhat underground thing. I would really like to do two, but I'll try and constrain myself to one. But on the way there, so my friend and I took an Uber there because we didn't have transportation, and my friend literally hopped off a plane and we took the Uber to this place, and the Uber driver was a Scottish guy. And we were like, oh, can you take us to this neighborhood? And he was like, oh, like, I grew up there. Like, my mom still lives there. And he had never heard of this place, which was crazy. But it was really cool. It's called Gilmerton Cove. It is a series of underground caves and tunnels underneath this old blacksmith shop in Edinburgh, just like a 10-minute drive outside the city center and into the suburbs.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah, it's really cool. And there is so much mystery around historically the roots of this place and like why it was built, because it is man-made. And they know that the tunnel or the caves extend beyond where they are currently, but they can't excavate it because there is an intersection of traffic right above. And they would have to like somehow get sponsored and shut down that road and do all the excavating.
Wow.
But they've been able to do like sonar technology and figure out that the tunnels actually extend a lot farther. So anyway, there's all this
Oh my
mystery surrounding whether this was like an ancient like ritual, like pagan worship site, or maybe it was some sort of Christian worship site, or maybe it was like a witch coven, or maybe it was a blacksmith shop, or like no one knows. And it's a little like creepy and mysterious, but it's also a family friendly thing. And it was totally fun. And the tour guide person, I don't know if she lives there, but she was definitely a local, and it was awesome. Would definitely recommend Gilmerton Cove. Yeah.
That's
sounds like
so
fun.
cool. I'm looking at pictures right now. It looks way cool.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Man,
Well-
that's awesome.
And I'm going to be... Cheryl, you can get mad at me if you want to, but I want to know what the second thing was, too.
Yeah, I want to hear the second thing, too. You've been there for a
Okay.
year. You're allowed to share, too.
So the second thing was related to, we heard about it on the Harry Potter tour, and it's this bar that is like, basically it's like a nerd bar, so you go there and you can like make a potion. So this is for people who are over
Really?
18. Yeah, you could. Well, so we went there and we were like, hey, we didn't have an appointment. Can we just like come in and get a drink? And they were super sweet. And they were like, yeah, usually we only take reservations, but yeah, come in and you get a wand and a cloak and you get to like tap the, and it's not just Harry Potter. It's like all sorts of different like
wow.
fandoms all combined into one. And so you get to like tap things and interact with the little drink. And then there's like, you know, people doing things with like ice, and there was like these things on the wall that were dragon heads and different things, and you could like pour drinks out of them, and
Ooh.
it was really fun.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was a blast. It's called, I believe it's called the Cauldron or the Dungeon. I don't remember. The name of it. It's pretty underground, but Cheryl, I could maybe send you the address of it, or give you the names so that you can
I'm
update
Googling
people
right
with that.
now. We'll see. The
Yeah, me too.
Cauldron.
The Cauldron, maybe.
Cauldron
yeah.
in
Magical
Edinburgh.
cocktail experience.
Yes, yeah, that's it. And it is
First look at the Cauldron, Edinburgh's new Harry Potter something.
it's
Nice.
definitely like maybe something that's a little more price. I think it was like £30 for the full experience. So it's not like the walking tour
It's
where
not cheap.
no. But it was definitely really fun and cool. So if you're there and you're
Cool.
like, this is something, you know, I want to go to a bar and have a unique experience, would recommend for sure. Yeah.
Nice.
The
I
Cauldron
love it.
Magical Experience is a 1 hour 45-minute immersive class.
Yeah.
That's
Where
the
you
part where
wield
you
a
swim
working
in
magic
the
wand
potion. You immerse
and use
in the
molecular
potion.
mixology
a full
to
body,
brew
like, sensory
drinkable
experience.
elixirs. Oh my gosh.
I'm all about that. That
Yeah,
sounds
it was a blast.
great.
After donning a robe. Oh my gosh, you get to put on a robe?
Yes. Oh, I'm into that.
Oh,
That sounds
boy.
great.
Yep.
Oh man. And Diana, you may not, I don't know if you have an answer to this one. Well, you might. What's your next trip?
Ooh, I really would like to go either to France or Spain. I've been to France once, but I have a friend who is in Lyon right now, and I would like to go visit her and go to like more of the Mediterranean parts of France, because I've been to Paris and stuff. And I would really
Cool.
love to do the Camino de Santiago or part of it at some point in Spain. So.
I know someone who's doing that right now.
Oh, really?
There
Yes.
actually are pilgrimages in Scotland too, if you're interested in the Camino.
Really?
and pilgrimages, yeah. They're all over
Nice.
Scotland. You can also do backpacking through. Yeah.
That's so cool. There's so many things.
Oh,
Too
so
many. It's
Yeah.
hard. You should go to Spain. Spain's my favorite.
Okay.
So it's wonderful.
Even if
Yeah.
I don't, even if no habla español.
I mean, obviously you speak some.
Okay.
But, yeah, I think so. I mean, it depends on how rural you're getting, but there are so many cities where there's just so many English-speaking tourists
Yeah.
that it's pretty easy to get by without speaking Spanish there. So unless you're going to like a really small town
Yeah.
or something, but even there, I mean, just make an effort. And then I think people also kind of meet you where you're at and speak
Yeah.
English to you. So, yeah. Yeah,
And there's this wonderful thing called Google Translate.
True.
that's true. Google Translate.
Like, actually, I literally used it in my classroom today. I have a student who speaks Portuguese.
Oh, cool.
And like I was having trouble communicating, so I pulled out my phone, and it has like a voice recognition thing, and that's how we communicated.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's awesome. That's very cool. And do you have any travel questions for us?
Can I ask, as expert traveler, maybe you've already answered this question a bunch too, but as more sort of regular travelers, how do you guys travel, and what do you prioritize when you're planning a trip? And yeah, maybe it's a little cliche, but what is one of your favorite travel experiences that you've had? That was more than one question.
Yep, that was cute. We can answer them. Which one do you want to ask first, though?
I think first I want to know your travel tips.
Okay, and you were saying that kind of within the realm of like, what do we prioritize when we're planning a trip?
Yeah, well,
Or-
so for me it was like, I like to slow down when I travel, and there's some issues with that. But how do you guys, like, what's your mentality when you're traveling and planning a trip? Do you, I mean, I know it varies based on if you're alone or with people or whatever, but how do you go about trying to maximize your experience?
Yeah. I mean, for me, I do like to see the big popular things. And
Yeah.
so as much as I think that I don't want to be a tourist, I think I really
Yeah.
do want to be a tourist. And like, I want to go see the Eiffel Tower when I'm in Paris, things like that. Like, I'm going to go
Yeah.
see the big things. I don't want to just see that. So I do try to do enough research to find out like what are some more of like the hidden gems, like you were talking about. And then how I go about planning. My favorite thing is to find anything that I might want to do in a city and star all of those things on Google Maps, and then just look at the map of the city and see where do I have the stars, and then try to figure out, like, are there a bunch near each other? Could I go see, like, because this, now my list of 30 things, I don't know if I'm going to go see 30 things, but what if 5 of them are really close to each other, and I could walk by that really cool mural on my way to the museum, or you know what I mean, or go to this restaurant that seems really neat that, like, I don't know if I'm gonna like just go to that restaurant on its own, but if it's right next to this other thing that I'm gonna go do, then so I do try to like group things geographically to try to make the most of the time I have somewhere. And when I do that well, I don't think I feel super exhausted either, because it kind of feels like, oh, I'm just going to go walk by this thing on my way to this other thing, and so it just can end up in some cool walks sometimes. So
Yeah, that makes total sense.
I'd say that's how I kind of go about it. Yeah. Ryan?
Well, I think the thing that's unique about me is I'm a total science geek. So when I'm looking at things that I want to do, yes, there are times where it's the big tourist attraction, like the big thing, like the Eiffel Tower or whatever. But there's also things that I'm not interested in, like a lot of art museums. I just don't have the patience. I just don't know enough about it. And if it's free, I'll pop in and see it. If it's not free, I may or may not go in, depending on what's going on. But I will often look for the things that might be unique scientifically, or scientific sites or museums or those sorts of things that are in a city, because those are the things that, for me personally, I'm going to enjoy more. So, for example, you're still in Edinburgh, right? So Arthur's Seat and the Salisbury Crags are in Edinburgh. And those are things that I'm really interested in seeing, because geologically, like, one of them is an old dead extinct volcano, right, which I think is super cool. And then also there's been some really important discoveries made at the Salisbury Crags in relation to geology and fossils and some things like that. So like, those are things that I would personally prioritize that other people might not have as much interest in, for example.
Yeah, I have a view of Arthur's Seat from my apartment.
Oh,
It's
that's
amazing.
so cool.
Yeah.
Do you ever sit there and picture what it would be like if it blew up?
Oh, but it's an extinct volcano.
Yeah, I know that. But still, do you ever?
Well, I don't take pleasure in the decimation of humankind. Maybe like
No,
you.
I don't take pleasure either.
I'm just
But
kidding.
I don't know. That's just something that my brain does. I'm like, oh, what would that look like if this were to erupt
Yeah,
right now?
no, definitely. I mean, I don't. No, I haven't.
That's okay. I
But
wouldn't
I've
expect
walked
that you
on it,
would
and
have.
it's pretty.
That's cool.
Oh my goodness. All right. What was your other question?
What have been? I don't want to limit you to one, but some of your best travel experiences and why.
Gosh, that's so hard.
Yeah.
Best travel experiences.
That could be taken a lot of different ways. I think
Yeah.
I will take it in the way of a year ago when I went to Spain. I got to stay with locals in several different places, and I was there alone. And for both those reasons, I think it was really cool. Like, getting to just stay with people who live there and getting to know new people and just kind of see their home and see how they live. And I didn't plan much because they just showed me around. And then also doing that on my own meant that I didn't speak English very much on the whole trip. And so I got immersed in the language more. And I think had to socialize more because I didn't have like my go-to person with me or anything. And so that was something that I would love to figure out how to do again, or how to even get pieces of that in future trips because of what an amazing experience that was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that some of those things, two things came to mind. One of them was actually similar, Cheryl, to what you talked about, where it was kind of this, it was definitely not planned, but I have quite a few friends that live in Slovenia. And I was out there once several years ago, and then kind of was messaging with some of the people, and then rented a car and drove up to see one of my friends. And then like one thing led to the other, ended up like staying at his place overnight and having this really cool experience out on the lake, and like all these really cool things that was fun to just kind of be able to experience, with him, and to see what his house was like, and, kind of, again, more that people side. But I think the other thing for me, a lot of my travel is with students, because as a teacher, that's one of the ways that I can make travel happen in a practical way for me. Mm-hmm. But one of the things that I love about doing that is I love seeing the students get enjoyment from the travel, both from the cultural experiences, but then also a lot of the travel that I'm doing is science focused. And so to have them get excited about seeing these scientific things, as opposed to reading it in a textbook or hearing about it at school, but actually seeing or experiencing, or, having to really, really be up close and personal with some of these things, and just the excitement and the interest level that they have, I really, really enjoy being able to share that experience with them.
Yeah.
It's so cute.
A lot of times I think
that.
what makes travel the best is the people you're with and the people you meet.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
That's
Definitely
so true.
does.
Yeah.
Good questions.
Good questions.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and move into the last segment of the episode this week, which is called Wish You Were Here. During this segment, each of us is going to share a brief little travel attraction from the many different places that we've been. Think of it kind of like a little postcard with a snapshot that says, wish you were here. This is a cool spot. Saw this cool thing. Want you to find out about it because it's cool enough that you should be here. So, Diana, what would you like to share for your wish you were here?
One of the favorite things that I've ever done is when I was in Greece a year and a half ago, we saw the grave of, I believe it was King Agamemnon, Alexander the Great's, like, grandfather or something. It's I don't remember all the history, and I really apologize because I wish that I could really explain it in its fullness. But it was, so they did beehive graves, like during sort of more ancient burial, because people would plunder them if they weren't really well hidden and disguised, and also just underground. But it was something that was only discovered in the 1970s. And
oh, really?
Yeah, and so
Wow.
it was this really, really exciting thing because it was this grave that was discovered, and it's just like two hills. Like it doesn't look like anything extraordinary. But then this person excavated it and found the graves of these royals, which was this huge deal, and they were so well preserved because they had never been touched, and it was just really cool to see all these ancient artifacts. And I think one of my favorite things from Greece overall was seeing that, and also just realizing just the artistry that people had. And I think sometimes there's a lot of like cultural there's a word for it and I don't remember, but like forward thinking pride, and like we're so advanced and we have all this technology, but then you look back and you see how they made these structures, and mathematically they're perfect and they're still standing, and they're these things that they carved and made out of gold, and just this place had so many of those relics, and I really, really enjoyed that. And I wish I could be more specific about what it was in the history, but yeah, that was one of my take me with you moments.
Cool.
Awesome.
That's awesome. Very
Cheryl,
cool.
what's your wish you were here?
I'm going to share about one that is local to us this week in Issaquah, Washington, which is near Seattle. The Cougar Mountain Zoo. It is a little zoo. It's not like little animals. It's just the zoo is. It's a small little zoo. I would say it would take you, if you saw everything, just like a couple hours maybe to go through. So
Even that long?
maybe not even that long, like maybe an hour. And so it's just a little one, and it's in a fun location. It's in like the kind of hilly, mountainy area of Issaquah, and so it's in kind of like a neighborhood with a lot of trees and everything, and so it's a nice setting. I have a 5-year-old future stepson, and it was great to take him to because he gets real bored if we do a full zoo. So this zoo was like the right amount of zoo to like keep interest and then be like, and we're done. And like it's not super popular, which means like parking is free and like very close to the zoo itself. And but they have reindeer there, so that's fun. They have I definitely remember the llamas. They have a lot of parrots. They have some big birds. I'm trying to think of
How about a cougar?
Wolves? Cougars? Wolves
If it's the Cougar Mountain Zoo, do they have a cougar?
Well, it's in Cougar Mountain, like the area on Cougar Mountain, and I don't remember if they have. Now I want to know. Let's see.
I thought they did actually have cougars.
They do have a picture of a cougar. It looks like a white tiger. I know they have wolves there.
Do they have an albino
Website,
cougar?
tell me about it. Special attract. What are their flagship exhibits? How about the World of Wolves, the World of Macaws, tigers, reindeer, cougars, lemurs, and more. So
And more. The World of Cougars.
yeah,
Yeah, they have cougars.
it's an award-winning mountain lion exhibit. I don't know who gave them the award, but it has unique features not found anywhere else.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I would almost say it's like a cute little like neighborhood zoo or something. And so
Yeah.
it's a fun one. Yeah, check it out. It's good. Yeah, Ryan?
So I'm going to go south from here a little bit down to Los Angeles. And my Wish You Were Here is going to be the Griffith Observatory. So as far as observatories go, it's actually not that amazing. It has some exhibits on the inside that have some cool little plaques and some cool kind of astronomy things. I think it's geared mostly for younger kids, which is fine. But its location is actually what I think is kind of the coolest. So it's on a hill overlooking most of the rest of LA. And off to one side, you can actually see the Hollywood sign, and it just kind of looks down on the rest of the city. And they've got lawns and grass kind of up where it's at. You can go out kind of on the like balconies and things out around the back and kind of look out on the city. And you can go back at night, and they do have a telescope or two that you can look through and look at the moon or a couple of planets or things. But you can also then look out over LA at night and see all of the ridiculous amounts of city lights that are all kind of there and all laid out and sort of the grid pattern and all of that sort of stuff. So I think it's a fun trip. I've been twice, and both times parking was pretty awful. So factor that in. You had to like park down on some not random, but like this windy street and then walk quite a ways to actually get back up there. I mean, it's fine. It wasn't terrible, but it was a decent amount of walking. It's also, the Griffith Observatory is in a number of movies and TV shows and things. So it may be something that you would recognize. It's this big white building with kind of a dome and some things like that. So it's just kind of a fun little day trip out of LA. Don't ask me which part of LA, the part that you can see the Hollywood sign from. I don't know. I don't know LA well enough to know. I just know it's big and there's traffic everywhere. So, but it's fun. So the Griffith Observatory.
Nice. I've never been there.
I haven't
Really?
either.
Yeah. I went to school down there, but one of my classes we were supposed to go together, and then that was during one of the fires, and so it didn't work out, and we weren't able to go. So yeah, I need to go there sometime. It looks like a fun building, and so that's nice. Very cool.
All right. Well, that is going to do it for this week's episode. Diana, thank you so much for sharing your experience and for getting up at 3:30 in the morning. It's now, what, almost 5 over there?
Yep.
Like a quarter to 5?
You're welcome. It was a joy.
And you're going to go back to bed very shortly?
Maybe. We'll see.
Stay up? Maybe. Oh, boy. Oof. To have that kind of stamina with lack of sleep, I definitely don't. But thank you very much. We appreciate it a lot.
Thanks so much.
We would love for you, our listeners, to follow us on social media. We are at Timwy Podcast. That's TMWI for Take Me With You Podcast on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. And hopefully we can get some pictures from Diana to kind of share on our social media. And you can find other cool things that our guests have shared and are doing. So please follow us.
You can also email us at timwypodcast@gmail.com. Send us your travel questions and stories. And what city did you get to do, make a magic potion in a bar? And we want to hear about it.
And if you don't want to type about it, but you would rather speak about it, you can call us and leave us a voicemail. The phone number to do that is 406-763-8699. Or if it's helpful to remember, that's 406-POD-TIMWY. We would also really appreciate if you would rate and review us on whatever you're using to listen to this podcast. Please subscribe to the podcast so you can get notified every time we post a new episode. And please share about our podcast on social media so more people can find out about all of the cool trips that our guests have been on.
As always, thank you to Beth Reed Miller for our awesome artwork. You can check out more of her artwork at Beth Is Something. And thank you to Erica Corbin for the use of her song Round the Globe. You can listen to Erica's music wherever music is sold or streamed.
All right, one last time, Diana, thank you again for braving the early wee morning hours to be on our podcast this week.
Thanks so much, guys.
Yay!
Yay.
That's going to do it for us. So until next time, remember to take me with you.
Take me with you.
Can we get a sailboat chasing down the sunset as we float round and round the globe? Salty air and balmy nights, guided only by the lights above, and a little love. Oh, the world is out there waiting to explore, and all our troubles here wanting